stuff around content, which I know you all are just dying to know more about. So I'd like to introduce Abbi Wood and have Abbi introduce herself. So Abbi, yay!
Hi, everyone. So as you guessed, I'm Abbi. I'm a professional wordsmith. What I do is work with business owners to polish their copy, polish their diamonds in the draft, their diamonds in the rough, even, sorry, what I would call a draft, and it would be a diamond in the rough, and make it so that you can engage your audience and build relationships and connection with the people that you want to reach.
That's awesome, Abbi. As a web designer, I often get people that give me content for their websites, and it's just, kind of, I don't want to say it's a rough draft, because they think it's finished. But what I will really want to know is the benefit someone's going to get from hiring you to help them with their content.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So essentially, a lot of what I'm seeing when people bring me that copy at any point, whether it's live on a website or it's something they're contemplating putting up as a revision or an upgrade of sorts to what they had previously, it reads like a brain dump of their thoughts inside. So it's information. It's what you would see on a brochure website, meant to inform and educate people, and not so much driven to engage the readers and interact with them to encourage their relationships.
So, okay, I understand what you say with engage, like if we're looking at Facebook or someplace where you're kind of having a conversation sort of on the timelines. But when you're talking about web copy, what does that look like? What example?
So you would know calls to action are going to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
When people have their web copy written, they don't rely on the copy piece to close out with a statement that's going to encourage somebody to take whatever the next logical action would be. That would be one thing. The next that I see missing a lot is using the second person voice, which would be words like you and your. So acknowledging the people on the other side of the screen, including them in your communication, making it more of a conversation.
So like instead of talking at them, you're trying to include them.
Right, yeah.
Perfect, exactly. Perfect. So let's see, as someone comes to you, with what their rough draft is or their ideas, what does it look like for them to work with you? Like what does that look like from a user's point of view, so to speak?
Yeah, okay, so it depends on how much they want to put into it and how much they would rather I put into it. Either way, it's going to be a partnership. We're going to be a team. They'll either be delivering their diamonds in the rough for me to polish, or we'll be talking and I'll be researching and doing the thing that I love to do, which is ask questions after questions to get a 360 view of their business, their goals, how communication fits into that in a way that's going to drive their business goals, and then go away and put it all together for them.
So I've worked with some people who would prefer to just give me all the information, or like you were saying, ask questions, but they would prefer that I submit those questions and they just answer them like on a piece of paper type thing. And then I've worked with people that have no good ability to think that way and to put their words down. They would rather just talk to me and get me the information that way, which is all verbal. So how do you work with different people?
Yes, that's actually a huge difference between how I approach my work and how a lot of other writers / wordsmiths would approach their work. Mm-hmm. I believe that if you can fill in a questionnaire, hello, you have your rough draft. And then you can work on refining it and taking it to the level that it needs to be. Essentially, if I'm polishing, you would have that in place already, and then I would come in and polish. What I really love to do is get on the phone, actually video chat, so I can see your body language and I can ask you questions, see your answers, And when I'm typing notes and taking notes, we're recording it so I can refer to it if needed. And then my note taking isn't disrupting your answers and your thought process.
That makes sense. So it's more fluid.
Definitely, yeah. And I follow a rough format because there are pieces that I need to cover, but I open it up to taking detours and taking the scenic route so that I can really learn fully around what it is that my clients do, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and how it impacts the people that they're connecting with in their business.
Okay. So what are 3 things that people would keep in mind when they're working with you?
All right, yeah. So the first thing would be the piece that I mentioned before about using the second person voice, reaching out to your reader through the screen so you can start making that connection, right?
Okay.
The second one, that first one is what I see missing a lot. So that would always be my number one recommendation. The second piece is going to be to think about whether you'll be writing the web copy in first person or third person. First person is going to be like I, me, this is what I do, this is what I have here. And third person is going to be Dotty does this. This is how Dotty does her work. She, her, him, they. That's going to be third person.
Are there different instances where you would use both of those, or is it better to use one or the other?
That's a really, really good question. Yeah. Oh, you could potentially find ways to bring both in. I would see instances if you had a company website, right? And then you have everybody's bios. They could potentially have their bio blurbs written in first person so they can reach out and make that connection. First person voice is more personable. It's relatable because it's one-on-one. It's person to person. And third person is more coming at it from an outside perspective. I would see that a lot on company websites where they, for instance, like yours, premium websites, that's a company name. If your website was Dotty, then you would want to see the copy more in first person. It doesn't make sense to have it written like somebody else is writing about you when your website is your name.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, for a solopreneur who is doing their own thing, first person is better. But if you're talking about like maybe a dental office where you've got 5 or 6 doctors and a bunch of other, people there, and it's more of a bigger business, then third person might serve that type of a business better.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what was the third thing on your list? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah. No worries. It's all good. The third thing would be conveying personality. Whether you're a business that's business to business or business to consumer, you always want to have a sense of flair, tone, style to your language. You want it to be in a personable, relatable way where people can connect. And so I would call that businality. It's where I take my client, the person, the business owner, and find the area where they intersect with that business. I find their businality, and then we're conveying that in a way that's very true and real for them.
Okay. So that's a great word, businality, by the way. Can you give some examples of that? Because, I've worked with people who are very humorous to talk to. When you actually go into their business, it's a really fun environment, but yet when you just read what they have, it seems very dry. And could you give some examples of how to interject some of the funness into their businality?
Yeah, so when you go from speaking verbally and then presenting in written format, it's so common to have 2 different voices. It can be like you're talking to 2 different people. It takes time to develop your voice, whether you're going from somebody like me who predominantly writes as a way of communication to then getting up on stage and speaking. I'm gonna project differently on stage. And what that takes is time. So making writing a habit, doing it regularly to a point where you can start figuring out, this is my writing voice. And you're going to find down the line, as you commit to both, that your voices are going to start to merge.
Okay.
And what I do with my clients when I'm talking to them, which is the beautiful thing about conversation, right? I can see them in the way that they're most comfortable communicating and hear their language and hear their words and not the words that end up being put on paper when they're filling out a questionnaire. Is then I can take those words that I'm hearing and capture them and make sure that they're being transferred to the written format.
So do you actually write the web content for their websites for them, or is it more of a collaboration between you and them?
I'd say it leans more towards a collaboration, but I'm definitely doing the bulk of the creative work and energy that goes into it.
Okay.
I'll need them for the talking, the interviewing, giving me the answers to all my questions so I can learn everything. And then I'll need them again to review the drafts that I develop, give me feedback. Sometimes they get stuck on a word, like, oh, that's not really a word I would say. And we figure out, okay, well, what word can we find to replace that? So in that sense, it's a collaboration. It's finding what's going to work for you, because if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to work for your audience.
Okay. And what, since I'm a web designer, I kind of focus on web, but what other communications can you help them with?
I've been involved in book projects. If anybody wants to develop a course to help guide their audience through a process they would typically do one-on-one, I can come in and break down that communication process in a way that's going to translate to a written format. If they're delivering a talk on stage, I can come in and help structure it so that it flows organically from one section to the next, and in a way where they're engaging the audience, right? Because again, when people are speaking up on stage, a lot of it's, imparting the information that they have in their brain without consideration for how is it going to be received and how can I make space for response and engagement.
Okay. So you can pretty much help with really any actual communications that a business would have.
I'd like to think so. I make it my job. I make it my job. It's my purpose in life to figure out effective communication, right down to the nitty-gritty of which word is it going to be. It fascinates me, for instance, that integrity and freedom, two different words, can mean the same thing for people, or taking just one word, integrity, and it has completely different connotations for different people. So doing that exploration into what words are going to fit your purpose and you and your audience in a way where we can all come together, I think that's a really beautiful thing.
And I would agree with that. So I have to, or I often have a lot of my customers come to me that are startups. So they're really good at whatever it is that they do, and they really have no idea where to begin with creating content that's going to convey what it is that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so where do people need to be before they start to work with you? What does that process look like?
It depends. I come in at so many different points of the project life cycle. If it's at the very beginning, we'll go into an exploration of who they are, what their personality is. That's the piece that's going to connect them, and who their audience is. Those three components. And while we explore those, we're going to get into their business, the structure, the service offerings, what they do, how they do it. That's all going to play through all those pieces.
Okay. So if they don't have anything, you can still help them, or
yeah. I mean, that's probably
something. Then you can. I'm sorry, my dog needs to.
Oh, hello.
He just wanted to be on camera.
Yeah, it's 15 seconds of fame.
Yeah, more like 2 seconds of fame. Okay, so somebody that really doesn't have any idea what they want to say, you can help them, or somebody who has been in business for a while and they have a much better picture of what their businality, I love that word, what their businality is, you can still help them.
Yeah, that's right. At any stage, you have some sense of personality, right? We all grow and evolve as we move through life and in business. What language works for you now is not going to be the language that works for you 1 year, 2 years, 3, 5 years down the road.
That is so true. And I would have never known that when I started.
Right. I know. I did my web copy for the first time and I thought, okay, I'm done. And then a year later, I'm like, oh, this doesn't seem accurate now.
You know, with websites, people do think that, okay, it's built, it's done. Now I can move on to the next project.
Right.
And I always tell them, your website's never done. It's more of a journey. It will evolve over time. And it sounds like you're saying the same thing with the communications that their business has.
Yeah, I mean, the photography, the design, the language, these are pieces that all play together to make a truly beautiful website.
Yes, they do.
I think all three need to evolve.
Yes. I had a conversation with a photographer just yesterday about, you know, what do we want to have on the website versus what's there now, and how are we going to improve it and all of that. So you're right. Everything is always in flux, I guess, is how I would put it.
Yeah. And the websites need to reflect that. It does take work. And I think that's why it's important to, you know, have the drive to figure, if you're a DIYer, right, to learn the tech and everything that you need to do to keep on top of that, or have an amazing team in place that just gets you.
Yep. So we only have about 3 minutes left. That was a fast 20 minutes, wasn't it? So is there some parting message you would like to leave our audience, and also mention where they can get in touch with you to find out more information if they are in need of your services?
That would be helpful, wouldn't it?
It would be.
My parting message would be, wherever your language is in the process, whether you're writing something or preparing something to speak, as much as I polish and I come in and refine things, don't worry about making things perfect before you implement it, before you put it on your website, before you go deliver your talk. Do the thing anyway, because progress over perfection, always. I
would so agree with that, because that perfection thing has kept many people from ever actually implementing and starting.
Right, exactly. And so done is better than perfect. Get something out there and then figure it out later. If it comes up for you, you'll know when it's the right time to pursue, okay, maybe we should look at polishing this piece. And if not, then no worries.
Awesome. So how can people get a hold of you, Abbi?
Okay, so my website is www.abbiwood.com, and that's ABBIWOOD.com.
And we'll go ahead and put that in the comments once this actually gets posted on my Facebook page and shared to your Facebook page. So that will be there as well. Any other way that they should get a hold of you? Or
yeah, they can reach out to me through the website. I'm always open to receiving communication. I'm always open to conversation, because it is what I do, and I believe that any question is better than no question. So if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and mention this video, this interview, and I'll be sure to give you a hand.
Great. Well, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Ask Dotty, and we will see you in the future. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. End. Yes.
All right. It still says live, but it's